Well, it's that time again. Welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean right here on the Rock Rage Radio Network, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk and Mapex Drums. I have Mike Mostert from the band In Theory. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there on this Monday night. It's all we can do, right?
All right. And so,
So
what city you doing it from?
I am in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada.
Oh, there you go.
And what about you?
Well, right now, I live in Muscle Shoals, but for the next 2 weeks, I'm in Atlanta.
Okay.
So it's a fine, cool 105 with the humidity.
I was going to say, yeah, she's pretty hot. Muscle Shoals. I mean, come on, Muscle Shoals. You got the swampus, my friend. What's it like living there?
Muscle Shoals is an interesting place. It's probably one of the only places in the world where there's a high concentration of recording studios. So it's really like a small, like it's a quad cities. It's really, sometimes they call it the Tri Cities, but it's really the quad cities.
Yeah,
But there's got to be at least 20 some odd studios in a 10-mile radius, and they're always booked. And people go in there for the vibe. There's an energy. There's something about the water, as they say. Um, but I just think that people want to walk in, in the legacy of, this is where Steven Tyler recorded, this is where Wilson Pickett recorded, Aretha,
right.
Rolling Stones. I mean, the list goes on. And a lot of people come there, they feel a couple of things. I think they feel inspired, and then I feel like they also want to raise their game. They know what came, before them.
Absolutely. And from a, I guess, a music vibe, it's got to be next level cool.
Yeah, but it's a little bit more of the if you love the R&B and the blues and that stuff in country, that's the place.
Nice.
Yeah, we're kind of unique. We're like the only rock bands in Muscle Shoals.
Well, I was going to
You
say, tell me about In Theory, because when Charlie, I've got this thing with Charlie. Charlie says, "Hey, do you want to?" I mean, I love to expose my audience to all kinds of new bands, right? And
right,
bands that I have, and not necessarily that you're new, but new to them.
sure.
And Charlie sent me your info. I'm like, absolutely, I want to talk to Mike. So tell us about you guys.
Well, In Theory is a band actually of Tony Covino, the singer, and myself. And then basically how I produce records and we write records. It's sort of like how Steely Dan does it. So we, depending on the song or my mood, or we'll bring in different people. So on this record that's coming out I think on July 25th, and we have Vinny Appice on it, and we have
Ah,
Rod Morgenstein and Eric Gales and Tommy Henriksen and Perry Richardson from Striper. And then I have a bonus track in which I have also Victor Woot and Rod Morgenstein. And then I incorporate. It's always important for me to have one of like when Lynyrd Skynyrd talks about the Swampers or the Fame Gang. People get them a little confused, but they're technically the same. Technically, um, but I always bring in on the Hammond B3 Clayton Ivy, and he's all that stuff. Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, like he was there from the '60s and just a master genius at the on keys. So I feel like that always gives us a little bit different, element to In Theory. There's a little bit more depth to what he's bringing than I say like if your influence is starting from the '80s or '90s, you have different influences, and obviously he came from a little bit more from the R&B background. So
an embarrassment of drummer riches. I am a drummer, and I was going to say, if you're like Steely Dan, are you hard on drummers when you're in the studio?
um, yes and no on that. Um, well, on this record too, I forgot to mention Glenn Sobel. I'm not sure if you know Glenn.
Absolutely.
All right, so we have Glenn. I don't think you have to be too tough on Glenn. Vinny Appice, you know, um, and who else was, and so yeah, Glenn, Vinny, and Rod Morgenstein.
Yeah.
As I always make a joke, like three drummers that don't suck.
Yeah,
So
they're all right. If they practice a little bit more, maybe they'll amount to something, right?
yeah, so I think I'm lucky. I have a lot of what do you want to say, good friends in high places, so to speak,
Absolutely. Yeah,
and
I like that you're doing that because I mean, some people. Well, let me ask you this, right? Because where I come from, sometimes people will recruit a songwriter or they will go to a certain place because they think it's going to add a little bit of cachet to the
sure,
project. And unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't rubbed the right way. You're doing it. I'm guessing because you want the cachet, but they're friends of yours and you trust them to play in your music. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, well, yeah, and some things, like Vinny plays a little more of a backbeat.
Yeah,
He's got a little more of a Bonham thing going. So
yeah.
like Vinny would be perfect, and he's a friend of mine, and Glenn as well. We did the song with, what a great song. We did a remake of Zeppelin with Eric Gales, um, Glenn Sobel on drums. Isn't Jimbo Hart? I'm not sure if you know who Jimbo is, but Jimbo's from Jason Isbell's band. Then I brought in, Clayton, from the Swampers, and then Tony and I. So I lost my thought on that, but yeah, I just felt like they all fit the parts right.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, I have a Vinny Appice story that's actually funny because he and Carmine came here to Halifax, and I think it was '88 or '89 to do a clinic, and I went because when I was learning how to play, Realistic Rock, Carmine's book, I it was my Bible, right? Anyway, so they're both playing, and Carmine's playing. Vinny kind of steps away. No, sorry, vice versa. Vinny plays first. He does a solo first.
Right.
Carmine comes back. Vinny steps away, and the volume went. I could not believe the power that Vinny Appice had. And the thing that I love about his playing, you mentioned the backbeat, but
Right.
it's all the little ghost notes that he does that you don't necessarily hear that
Yes.
are, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah,
And
that's
he,
a
and he picks unusual spots to do
he
fills.
does absolutely.
And I'm not sure what the drum technique, but it's almost, instead of doing best way I can do it, he's hitting everything like, he's not doing that. He's just like it's really, his hits are really deliberate on how he does things. It's really unique. I've never worked with a drummer like that. And but I have one Vinny story. So we had done one track with him already, and then so I'm working on another one, and it was a little bit more. For a drummer, you would appreciate it or hate me if you were my drummer. So what I did is I put three different songs into one song.
Huh.
So first section was tempo was 92. Second section tempo was 124. Next section, so if you try to put all that to like a click, and then so it was going like really fast, and then you have to pull it back on the verses, and get the tempo just right. And so so we're working it with Vinny, and I think Vinny has a lot of pride. So I'm doing my thing, and he goes, "Well, what do you think, Mike?" And I said, "Well, I think we can make it work. It's not the usually you want like, oh, that was killer, like."
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And he's like, um, "Give me one more day." And then next day he cut. He goes, "You know what? I took my Vinny vitamins, and yeah, it was night and day. Two different drummers from day to day."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think it's very cool. And I wouldn't hate you because that would be, I think you saying that story, him and where he is in his life, and he doesn't really have anything to prove to anybody, but he still wants to learn. He still has that sense of pride,
Yeah.
and I think that's a great message for any musician to have. You never arrive. You always got to strive to get better, right?
Yeah, and that's, I have to say, I think you hit it really on the head. I think young musicians or I say like people mid-level, I think sometimes their ego is bigger than their talent,
Yeah,
and it seems like all the guys that I've worked with that I mentioned earlier, like I said, they take a pride, and I feel like there's a reason why they're great, and there's a reason why there's longevity in their career. Because even on this, I mean, I know I'm a smaller project to them, but they want to get it perfect, and they want me to be happy, as well. And that's without exception, whether it's Tommy Hendrickson or Eric Gales, and Eric was, he was tough on himself. He was tough on me. We were tough on each other, but he was. I have great videos of him. He was playing, and he's just screaming at himself when he's making a bad note. He's like, oh, and he's screaming, and but he was tough on me. I've never really been challenged because I'm used to being, um, more in control. But all right, but now if we're doing a collaboration, I also have to like, okay, you have to lead, but there's a reason I'm collaborating.
yep.
So I have to let him do his thing, and it turned out fantastic. And now, like I say, Eric and I, we become friends, and he did this. I have to say, I got very choked up. there was a few things that happened. We were on tour with that band Angel. I'm not sure if you
Yeah,
remember those guys.
absolutely. Well, their
So,
drummer Billy's he's a buddy of mine.
oh, Billy Orico, yeah,
Yeah,
he's a great drummer
is he ever?
and super nice guy. And so we were on tour with them, and we were about to release the single. So, and we did it as what they call a compound release.
Yeah.
So one shows up on Eric's page, and one shows up on our page. So Eric never heard the completed mix or anything, and all of a sudden he goes, "Is this us? Is this what we did?" And he goes, "Can you send it to me?" so so here I am. We're about to play. I think we're doing Sellersville Theater at the time, and we're about to get on stage. And I sent it to him before I got on stage. It was a great set. It was amazing. We had like standing ovation. It was a great set. I walk off the stage. I check my phone, and I get a text from Eric, and he goes, "Bro, this is great. Like, you should be proud of this. This is great." So from doing a great set, as you know, it makes you feel great, and standing ovation, and then Eric Gales doing that. That was a good day.
Well, and I think the message in there for me, and hopefully people when they watch this interview, is that you got to be humble. And most of the great ones I found, or what I'm learning is that I've been doing this 5 years now, right? And the super high end people, they're humble. There's not a
Right.
there's zero pretentiousness. There's zero whatever. It's the people that I can walk out my door and go up the road 5 minutes from now, and they're playing in a little club and they want to be like that, and it's too bad because music shouldn't be that way. So that's amazing. So if I was to try to, I guess, rope my people in and say, okay, in theory, sounds like who? Would there be a comparable that you could bust out?
I have to say it's evolving, but um, we the closest comparisons we always get. I mean, initially they were saying we're like a Zeppelin meets Soundgarden because Tony sounds like Chris Cornell, and and then of course early on I was experimenting with like open G tuning, all these different tunings. I had a lot of acoustic and 12 strings, so it gave it that Zeppelin thing, and also naturally a little bit more of a bluesy player. So if you take both those, and it's hard rock, so I understand those comparisons, but as time's going on, I think other influences are creeping up where I feel like we're getting a little bit heavier on certain things. On some things, we're getting a little bit even more bluesier. Um, and say like the recent two songs we just did say with Tommy Henriksen, who's with Alice Cooper and the Hollywood Vampires. Now that we have the whole Mutt Lang team involved with that, like Ole the mixer and Howie mastering, and of course Tommy's a protege of Mutt's. So like I think he's done the last 5 years he's worked with Mutt. So um, so when we're working on stuff, it's actually kind of cool. Like we have everything labeled and it says Mutt saying hey. So like on some of our songs you hear hey, that's actually Mutt doing hey,
Nice.
and then like we have actually like the samples from the Def Leppard record, the samples from the ZZ Top record that he actually used on the records. So,
I had the opportunity to meet Mick Hughes. I don't know if you know Mick Hughes. He used to do sound for Metallica back in the
okay.
day. They call him Big Mick Hughes because he's a big man. And I met him shortly after Hysteria came out, and he actually did all the drum programming for that.
Hmm.
And he was telling me some stories about what he went through to actually get the drum sounds that Mutt would send him these random sounds, and they had to put them together. So to spend, do you get to spend any time with him, or is it just
No, but
people?
I guess spend a lot of time with Tommy because Tommy
Yeah.
and I co-produced it, um, which is it's been a process. It took us quite a long time to do it. So I'm doing my interpretation. Else, get together. With Tommy and I will talk about it. He puts his spin on it, sends it back. Puts his take, sends it back to me. I put my take, and we just go back and forth until we both like, okay, I think we got something here. And we're right now we're in the midst of finishing up another one, which I think it's going to be another 2 weeks. On that one, we brought in a drummer, what's his name, Bobby Huff. I'm not sure if you know who Bobby Huff is, but he's been another guy who's been working with Mutt for like 20 years or so,
Okay.
and he's got a great YouTube show called Doctor Bob or where he actually gives the secrets. This is how Mutt Lange gets this sound. This is how
Ah,
Metallica gets this sound, and he'll break it down. What plugins to use, how to layer it, what techniques they use, and then so yeah. So on this last track, we brought him on for this song. It was very fitting. It sounds like a heavy Def Leppard. Now it sounds like a heavy Def Leppard. It's like if you took the aggression of Def Leppard prior to Mutt Lange, but yeah, so you can that's the best way I can describe it. It's contradictory. So you have like on the High and Dry record,
yeah.
There's a certain aggression that you have when you're younger, but there's a lot of polish to it that that you definitely feel the Mutt influence as well, or the Tommy influence, because Tommy has a little bit of a aggressive punk thing to him as
Yeah.
well. So
Well, and I mean, my favorite, somebody you go to an easy go to, but Back in Black for me,
oh yeah,
that drum sound between the kick and the snare and the hats is just, and I mean, obviously Phil Rudd laying it down, but I mean that an album from stem to stern is just an absolutely perfectly produced album for me. So, um, I get what you're saying. It's almost before he was getting too cute, right? Like where he was
yeah,
doing some of that stuff. Yeah, for sure. So you get to work with these guys, and not everybody gets to work with these guys, so that's pretty cool.
right.
You obviously don't take that for granted, and I'm guessing that this is all a learning process for you too when you're in the middle of it. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I look at it. I play two roles, so I'm typically the producer. So I feel on one hand I have to lead, and then on the other hand I have to be a student, and I have to just pick my battles. One, I have to be humble, and I
Right.
call taking a kick in the nuts, and like, okay, I'm listening, but um, but I also look at these people really care. If they care that much about my music, it just gives me more incentive, or yeah, more incentive, more excitement. Like, wow, they really care that much, and like this last track, I think Tommy put in almost like 50, 60 hours at least,
Amazing.
you know. So, but so when I see that, I mean, but I'm that guy as well. So I'm in the, so my poor engineer, I have to give him a shout out, Charles Holloman in Muscle Shoals. Him and I, we do 14, 16-hour days, like all the time for the last 7 years. We've been doing that. And so yeah, so everybody's just very dedicated to it. It's a really great experience.
No, that's amazing. And I mean, these guys, everybody's busy. When you want something done, you go to a busy person, right? Because they're going to find the time, they're going to do it right.
Right.
Um, so I love
True.
that model. So in terms of, your songs coming out, like what success look like to you? Because you're putting all this time into it. You got some heavy hitters. What success look like to you? Is it simply getting it out there, or do you have other aspirations for the
Oh no, there's definitely bigger aspirations. Eventually, to get bigger tours than what we've been doing.
right?
Um, and we've had, I'm not sure if you saw, our EPK or anything, but we've already charted twice. We've had two top 10 singles. We've been on 500 radio stations. We've been on, I think, three major networks. We've been in what 14, 15 movies. So we've had a lot of success, or milestones. But for me, it's the next milestone is a more, a better way to put a more profitable touring situation. That would be the next step for us.
So
And we know that we have to, um, we still have to eat it, so to speak.
yeah,
Because as you know, going on the road, tour bus, the band, the hotels,
big time.
is not cheap. It's definitely not cheap. But it's almost like we're doing it like old school. Like, we're winning one fan at a time, and that's one thing that's been consistent with us. Um, by the second or third song in our set, you see it, like the whole place starts crowding the stage, and I think it's not typical for an opening band, to get standing ovations or encores, and we're the opening band,
Yep.
and then on these tours. So I think that says a lot. It spells volumes that Eventually, once we get to a larger audience, we're going to keep winning them over and winning them over, and we'll get to our goal.
I think you're
You
Mike.
know,
You're the perfect guy to ask this question. And I won't. Yeah, I won't go. Oh, how much or whatever. But you mentioned, you're on the tours. You're getting radio play. You're in movies. You're on TV. You're doing all this stuff. Is all that working in terms of getting you guys paid, or is it still the same old that you hear that it's still a slog and it's still really tough to, you got to go on the road and you got to do merch and you got to do that stuff. Is that side of the business working for you guys?
it's it's still very tough. I'll put
Yeah.
it that way.
Yeah.
But but I think we had to pay our dues, so to speak, in that world. And I think we're very close to breaking it through now to to the goal, which is, but we brought on um, some more powerhouse people. So we brought on the PR people that handle Judas Priest, Rob Zombie,
Oh, nice.
ACDC. So that's our new PR company. So they're getting us in places that we normally wouldn't be. And plus, they also work with the larger booking agents, and so they're trying to hook us up with the bands that they represent from the PR standpoint, and make us the baby band with them. Um, and then there's some other interesting things happening. We also just brought on Victor Wooten's attorney,
Oh,
and he's handling a lot of that for us as well. So, so if I feel like if we didn't pay our dues and we didn't do that stuff the last several years, it wouldn't have put us in this position with the new PR team and the new attorneys. And there's some things I can't reveal yet, but we have offers. We're gonna definitely be playing Europe starting November 21st.
nice.
So we just don't know how many shows, but I know it's going to be. Right now, it's just Switzerland and Germany, but we're going to try to. They want to extend it, and then we'll have some guests that will announce on that as well. But yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, we had to pay our dues. Now it's put us in that right position, and now we have people in our corner that have a little bit more juice that can get us to the next level.
So I want to paint a little picture here. So a short-winded, long-winded thing about how this interview came to be. About 2 months ago, there was an artist that I knew that was on. They were with Deco, Charlie and the boys, and I reached out and I said, "Hey, I'd love to, talk to any of your artists if they're looking for podcast interviews." He hooked me up with one. Now Charlie is sending me people. Um, had I not seen that post and made that email or call or whatever, this wouldn't have happened. So what I'm saying is networking is so key in this business, right?
Correct.
Everything that you're talking about sounds to me like a door open because you knew somebody and you treated it the right way, and they knew two or three other people. Is that a fair statement?
That's a very accurate statement.
Yeah.
I feel you always this. Yeah, I mean, you said it, or you articulated it perfect. Like, one thing is never a straight route. Because of this person, it opened the doors to these other two things. And I think if you always treat people right, um, more doors will open. Always just treat people right. And
Life, life doesn't have to be hard, right, Mike?
what is that?
I say life doesn't have to be hard in that side of things because it's hard enough
No,
in other parts.
no. I mean, what's so hard to be kind to somebody?
Absolutely. I have a friend that says it doesn't cost anything to be kind. So
All
it's
right.
a good point. Last question, my friend. I know you got things to do. Where do I send my folks to find out more about In Theory and grab your music and all that fine
You can
stuff?
go to intheoryoriginal.com and you'll see tour dates on there, merch, more in depth, bio of the band. So it's definitely some deep levels to it. Because also, Tony and I used to be signed to EMI back in the day as well. So we do a little touching on that. When we had the big rock helmets. And back then, Steve Riley, from LA Guns, he was our drummer back
Oh, is that
then.
right? Wow.
Yeah, and we were signed to EMI and we did all that. But it was, music, the music scene was very different back then, right?
Absolutely.
So you had your 3 or 4 year cycle for hair bands, for punk, and then we were signed right on the last year before Nirvana hit. So you remember, and then they cut all the hair bands out, and you know,
So, funny little story to end this. In Halifax, Nirvana got signed. A person from Sub Pop Records came to this city on vacation, and saw one or two bands and signed them. And then they called it Grunge North, and I wasn't part of that. And I watched a whole lot of bands that, to be honest with you, weren't very talented get signed, and it was very frustrating. So it's one of
So
those things.
are you in the northwest of Canada or?
No, we're East Coast, so we're
Okay, gotcha.
I would say northeast of Bangor, Maine would be the best way I
Okay.
could. Yeah. So great little spot. Like our guitar player. So I have a band with my girlfriend, and her writing partner is our guitar player, and he just did a big show 2 weeks ago. It was Nickelback, Lenny Kravitz, The Killers, all kinds of stuff, and it's kind of hard to do shows here unless they're well planned, just because we're kind of got a weird geography. It's kind of tough,
Sure.
right? So, but look, my friend, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you. I look forward to seeing what you guys are up to and how the rest of the year goes for you. I'd love to stay in touch with you. I could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Somehow we send. Well, yeah. So send me an email or.
Well, we'll do this after once we stop
Okay.
recording. Mike, pleasure was all mine.
No, it's definitely on mine. I appreciate you taking the time. You know, you guys don't have to take the time to interview us, so I appreciate it.
We are back after this.